Yo!
Howdy, y'all!
Yeehaw! It's part 2 of our 4-part review. And this episode, time for backstory. So this is episode 9 of season 2.
The Outlaw Scrooge McDuck.
Yeehaw! And as we mentioned, this is actually a flashback episode. The premise is that Louie, being Louie, has given up on Louie Incorporated.
'Cause everything's too hard.
Yes, the line for the patent office is 5 people long. Ugh. Just give up on my dreams. Honestly, I shouldn't be surprised at this point. But yeah, of course, Scrooge hears about that after he went through all the trouble of getting him business cards and everything. So he decides to inspire Louie by telling him a story from his past, which actually takes place during his prospector days when he was looking for gold. So the whole premise is that Scrooge goes to this town in the West, and he's trying to find gold, but at the same time, he runs into his old flame, Goldie.
Goldie O'Gill.
Yep, and she's looking for the same exact thing. So it pretty much becomes a race to see who gets the gold first. Until we get another person who kind of throws everything out of whack. And it's pretty much a race to see who can get the gold first. So this was an interesting one. I was not expecting a flashback episode. Like, granted, we've had bits of flashbacks here and there from Scrooge's past, but we never had, like, a full episode dedicated to it. So this was rather interesting. And even more fascinating, we get even more callbacks to, like, characters, like, from the show and even from the comic. Like, I was rather impressed because, as I said, in addition to seeing Goldie again, we see an ancestor of Fenton. Who apparently Fenton Crackshell Cabrera had an ancestor who was a sheriff in the town. It was a Marshal.
Town of Gumption.
Yeah. It was a Marshal Cabrera.
Yeah.
And he's pretty much Fenton, like, to a T. Like, if he knew less science and more about just being a cowboy. Which actually, when you think about it, kind of is actually really accurate to history, because you don't see many, like, Hispanic cowboys in the media, even though
There were.
In actuality, there was more Hispanic and African-American cowboys than there were white cowboys. So, kudos to them on that.
Yeah, hell, I play Red Dead Redemption, and there's like a number of Spanish cowboy characters in there. So, yeah, definitely a lot of Spanish.
Mm-hmm. And then we get Gyro.
But it makes sense in context, especially because it also calls back again to the original series. So he's time traveled and gotten stuck there.
Yes, Gyro somehow ended up in this time period, the same exact place as Scrooge. And he ends up getting involved in the events to help it work in their favor. And it is like, at first it is so random, but given what we know of his history, of what he's invented, it ends up making too much sense.
I can't even question it. like, you know what?
Like, after the initial shock, I'm just like, you know what? I buy it.
Yep.
I'm not going to question this.
Also, it's funny, too, because he's like, his normal attire kind of fits with the time period, too. Mm-hmm. So, kudos.
And even funnier is that, because I joked before that, you know, the fact that Scrooge's voice actor is David Tennant, who's a Time Lord, and then he and Goldie are basically different forms of immortal who've, you know, been alive for over 100 years and keep retaining their youth and stuff. And yet in this episode, it's Gyro who's basically the Time Lord. Headcanon accepted.
Yep. And we have a new villain in the form of John D. Rockerduck?
Yes. Actually, I should say a new old villain. because John D. Rockerduck was actually from the comics and is one of Scrooge's oldest nemesis next to Glomgold. In fact, they were kind of basically the same character, just another rich rival. And as anybody who's studied history can tell you, he's based off, John D. Rockefeller, who was not the nicest of guys. Very successful, mind you. He's did a lot to, for technology and production in our time, but he was not a nice guy. And he is not a nice guy in this either.
It's especially funny because how we get to meet him. So basically it's like Scrooge and Goldie both have like a claim on the opposite side of this this creek. They both like kind of wind up coming in and meeting in the middle where they find this huge nugget of gold.
Which nobody's found before at all.
And so both of them find it at exactly the same time, ultimately. And then just as they're, claiming it, it gets pulled out of the ground by Rockerduck's crane.
Timing!
Yes.
Honestly, I'm surprised those two didn't destroy the town trying to get that nugget, because they made these long-ass tunnels, which, as we see, go to the center of town, and Goldie, buys up all the dynamite and is just blowing stuff.
Chucks it in there,
she
whatever.
is blowing up her way toward the nugget. I'm surprised that with the holes they made and all the, vibrations, that the entire town didn't collapse into the tunnel and kill them.
At first I even thought, because I wasn't, I kind of lost focus for a second, I thought she was throwing them into Scrooge's tunnel to screw him off, which would have been very fitting.
That. Yeah. I mean, she's done that before with her introductions, so...
So yeah, they get all pissed off when Rockerduck claims it, and basically he has claim. So Goldie, being who she is, tries to pit Scrooge and Rockerduck's hired muscle against each other, but then she gets stuck with the hired muscle, and she was like, "Oh, I don't have anybody to pit him against." So they wind up getting
useless here.
Yeah, they wind up getting tossed into jail where they meet Gyro.
Mm-hmm. And then eventually they make the sheriff and pretty much the whole town realize, Rockerduck kind of screwed you guys out of, a big payday. Because granted, nowadays gold is worthless to us. What, you get 25 cents for a bar head, one of those cash for gold places now. But that thing was friggin' asteroid size. And yeah, because Rockerduck bought up the town, technically he owns it. And even though he says he'll give him a share of it, he's not going to. And I just love how, just to further push in the fact that, he is, the villain in this, like you said, they give him, this
hired muscle.
Yeah, this hired goon, who is basically a combination of, Odd Job and Jaws from the James Bond movie. The guy with the top hat who can slice through anything and the iron jaw. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay then, I guess we're going full on evil here. Okay. All we needed was Rockerduck going
So they after some talking, the marshal overhears Scrooge, Goldie, and Gyro all talking about how they're going to try and rob his train, and he actually decides to go in on the plan too.
Yeah, I love they were getting ready to come up with this whole big convoluted plan, and then the sheriff just I can just let you out. Thank you for being reasonable.
So Scrooge decides he's going to be an outlaw. Roll credits.
And then they put on disguises to mix him with his rich folks, and that's where we see Scrooge get his signature top hat. Because apparently that needed an origin for some reason. Okay.
Whatever.
The thing I love most about this, because, like, this is, like, your typical train heist that you see in, like, old Western films and stuff. Like, not so much with a shootout and everything, but there's enough action where it's definitely engaging. And I like at one point, because Gyro is trying to use his, his recent tech to try to, like, help them, get off the train safely and everything.
He makes rocket horses!
Oh, God. That poor horse. Unfortunately, one of his inventions inevitably goes wrong, knocks him out. So now it's up to the sheriff to take it into his own hands. So, of course, he takes all of, like, the pieces, and he basically forms his own Gizmo Duck suit. Like, a nice callback to what his descendant would eventually become. And I'm like, this should not work, and yet it does. And yet I'm not complaining. And somehow Scrooge is actually able to, like, because at one point they get caught by the goon, and he actually manages to bribe his way out of it by saying, like, dude, come on, I know you want a share of this too. Like, you really want to help the fat cats out there, which is ironic considering, that Scrooge eventually becomes one of those rich fat cats. But, I mean, again, it's a nice show that, Scrooge can talk his way out of things in addition to fighting. So, unfortunately, as they get the gold out of the train, there's an accident.
The gold gets, like, broken up into all these shards, but as they're going over a bridge over Gumption Gulch. So they're, like, lamenting the loss of that until they get back into town and realize that from Gumption Gulch, the water flows right into Gumption, so all of these citizens are actually getting the gold back.
That's not bad, honestly.
No.
Like, it's a even distribution for everybody. They have to actually, like, work to get the gold, and I mean, it's appropriate to how people found gold back then, so it makes perfect sense. And nobody's not fighting over this huge frickin' monstrosity that shouldn't really exist.
Except Goldie.
Yeah. Goldie, of course, like, gotta get that gold.
Yep. There's just no helping some people.
Like, and I like that they actually retain, like, their flirtation throughout, because you see, like, at points of the story, like, Louis interrupts, because, of course, he's your typical kid with a short attention span. He doesn't give a shit about this. He's watching TV and stuff. And, like, at one point he's like, there's not going to be any mushy stuff in this, but...
I thought you didn't care!
So, but I mean, it's still there. The sexual tension is still high as ever. And, like, there are points where, like, you see them flat out blush around each other. So, and they do get to a point where it looks like they're going to kiss. But, of course, Goldie's got to be a dick. Yep. As you do. And, yeah, the whole story is that, basically, Scrooge, he wasn't a miser like he is now. He actually legitimately helped the town. He managed to split the profits evenly. He got the best of Rockerduck, and, that was pretty much the whole moral of the story to Louis. It's like, do you want to do things the right way? Do you want to do things like, the skeevy way? Do you want to do things the evil way?
Which he, describes to himself, Goldie, and Rockerduck, which comes out in the end because you see later that night, Louis on a phone call with Goldie. He's like, how did you, can I be like you? It's like, well, yes, it'll make my uncle mad.
Oh my God. I'm not surprised. Like, because even after all that, I knew Louis would just take the easy way out. That's just how he is. Although I give him credit for at least trying to be more deceptive and sneaky the way Goldie is, because that is an art form. And the fact that he's just willing to learn it, shows that he is willing to put some effort into his get rich quick schemes. Although I'm wondering how the hell he got her phone number, considering she's supposed to be in the Lost City of Gold at this point.
I mean, maybe there was a contact number on the back of the thing she sent. I don't know.
But Scrooge just has her on speed dial for whenever. I wouldn't be surprised.
Because frenemy.
Of course.
Yep.
So yeah, this was a fun episode. Again, you know, it was a big callback to everything. We get backstory, and not that much plot, although now I'm wondering if we are going to actually see, like, Louie, take Louie Incorporated to new heights by way of Goldie and have her actually get in on the scheme. Like, I can imagine at some point, maybe, she actually shows up and she ends up conning him out of a certain, like, adventure. I could totally see that happening. And like,
or Scrooge they try to con each other in the end. Yeah.
Scrooge will be like telling him the whole time, like, oh, you don't trust her, I told you so. And it's just gonna inevitably, you know, be a shit show, because that's, wherever Goldie goes, that's what happens. So, but it was fun though. I like seeing, like, the new characters, the new take on old characters. Like, it was like kind of like the previous one. It was fun. I very much enjoyed it.
I especially like it's not a big deal in this case, but Rockerduck is actually played by comedian John Hodgman. Some might know him from The Daily Show. He was also on those I'm a Mac, I'm a PC commercials with Justin Long. So it's kind of interesting. Honestly, if I hadn't read it, I might not have recognized that it was him. But hey, he did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the full significance of why he was chosen for that role. I guess because, you know, the whole Mac and PC thing with him playing a rich guy. Yeah. But, I mean, he did a good job. He had a distinct voice. He did, and like I said, Rockefeller played the villain like he's supposed to. So, and again, I thought the whole Bond, you know, tension was a little much. But I guess they just wanted to throw that in there for the sake of having a reference. So, okay.
I also like, there's some fourth wall breaks with, while the story's going on. They're like, at one point, Scrooge, like, stops for a second and the characters, like, look up for the disembodied voice. Like,
I love moments like that in flashbacks. It's like one of my favorites is like from How I Met Your Mother, where he's like trying to recount like this one story with Barty and Lily, and he keeps messing it up to the point they're looking at the camera like. I love moments like that. So yeah.
Oh, and we forgot about the Gyros time machine, which shows up very briefly. But yeah, it's like at the end, you see that he's got a bathtub time machine, which is referenced from the original show.
Yes, like, he does use it a couple times, and I was really tempted to make, like, a hot tub time machine show, too. But it's like one of those old-fashioned tubs, you know, with the legs and everything, so... And I love how he just... He disappears as randomly as he reappears. Like, after he gets knocked out and everybody else does the plan and stuff, he kind of just... It's
just like happening as like they're talking during the ending. He's just in the background. He goes to the time machine and quietly slips out.
Well, my work here is done.
But you didn't do anything.
Didn't I? Yeah, so again, this was another great episode. It was a lot of fun. And next time, oh boy, one word, glom gold, glom gold, glom gold, glom gold, glom gold. See you for part 3.